the Puppet Master. Hello and welcome to my channel. Today I will be reacting to Someone Please Help Elmo by the Film Theorists. And it has been a long time since after he did the part 2 because I've been very busy and I did put some videos out because I had nothing else to do and I forgot about this. So anyway, let's react. And also, I will link the channel down below and go see that video. Go see this video before because I will pause it and I'll pause it and talk over it. So anyway, let's react. And also subscribe at any time. You can subscribe, it's free, and subscribe at any time. And please like the video if you enjoy. The Puppet Master. Let's do this.
Rivalry happens a lot. In episode 4064, Elmo, Zoe, and an elephant are tasked.
Oh, and I forgot to mention, go watch part 1 if you don't know what the hell is going on. Continue.
Doing the Rocco dance. That's Mr. Rocco! And Elmo doesn't understand why other characters insist that Rocco is such a good dancer. I've always wanted to dance like Rocco!
Standing there.
But he's a rock!
I know it.
Oh, but what a dancer! Such grace! In episode 4424, Zoe insists that Rocco is getting married. She throws a huge event complete with guests and a cake, much to the confusion and frustration of Elmo.
Rocco has to choose a best man, see? Best man for a rock? This is the silliest thing Elmo's ever heard!
This pattern holds even going as far back as Rocco's first appearance in episode 3809, where Elmo straight up laughs in Zoe's face when she tries to introduce him.
Elmo, he's right here.
Ooh.
See? He's my new best friend, Rocco. But Zoe, it's a rock.
Laughing in your friend's face when she introduces you to her new friend, imaginary or otherwise. Not exactly a very kind thing to do there, Elmo. Seems remarkably out of character for this gentle and sweet monster. But why? What is the actual backstory here? Well, from the creator's standpoint, this was always what they intended. Reading interviews with the writers that came out after the viral video, they intended for Elmo to always get frustrated by the whole Rocco situation. See, while the clips of Elmo getting frustrated are hilarious and show him being an absolute savage to this rock, the full episodes actually paint a much different picture. Yeah, in the episodes, Elmo always starts stubborn and insists that Rocco is just rock. But in basically every single situation, he either exhibits an enormous amount of patience or goes out of his way to befriend Rocco for Zoe's sake. For instance, that episode where Rocco is getting...
Elmo is very, and I mean very rude, but also nice. And also, I just like I can do this. Anyway, so let's continue. I might have to be very nice because normally he's like really mean to Rocco. Continue.
Married, Elmo is honored when Rocco actually wants him to become the best man. In another episode, number 4077, while the group is having fun on a play date and they're swinging on a tire swing, Zoe insists that Rocco get a turn before Elmo. Despite him not wanting Rocco to get a turn because, you know, it's a rock, Elmo eventually relents and patiently waits his turn while Rocco goes first. And during the elephant dance session that I mentioned earlier, Elmo keeps dancing for Rocco despite being knocked around by the giant elephant and Rocco's constant criticism of Elmo's moves.
But that Rocco, the elephant was great, but Elmo's shooby-dooby-doos need work.
So while Elmo does tend to lose his cool whenever Rocco gets brought into the picture, by the end of the episode, he generally learns and grows from the experience. But hold on, go back to that last example. Elmo is being physically and psychologically attacked here. He's being knocked around by an elephant and made fun of for his dance moves, all of it for the benefit of Rocco. In the cookie clip, Elmo's favorite cookie is being given away to an inanimate object. And on the tire swing, Elmo winds up having to share his turn because Rocco has gone before him, and suddenly the adult Gabby has run out of time.
Who's next?
Elmo is. Rocco's in line ahead of you. It's his turn. But Rocco is a rock.
You know, Elmo, Rocco is next in line.
Okay, fine.
In each of these situations, and others that I'm not talking about, Zoe is always the one pulling some kind of cruel stunt on Elmo. Enough so that I have to ask, is she the true monster here?
Yes,
It'd be
she
one
is.
thing if Zoe actually thought that Rocco was alive, but she doesn't. She understands what he is. In that infamous cookie clip, Zoe admits that Rocco isn't actually alive. He doesn't eat or breathe or grow.
It's true that Rocco really isn't alive like you and I are. He doesn't eat or breathe or grow, right?
Well, yeah.
In fact, the episode that introduces Rocco also features a song that specifically says that rocks aren't alive and cannot eat.
Is a rock alive? No, it can't grow like your brother. Is a rock alive? No, it can't eat like your mother.
Seems Seems like a very clear message from the creators of the show. So Zoe understands that Rocco isn't alive. He isn't really saying all of these things to Elmo or wanting to eat his favorite type of cookie. So that would imply then that Zoe has to be the one being the real jerk here, right? I mean, if you go back and watch these interactions with that fact in mind, the tone drastically shifts. All of a sudden, this isn't a case of a girl wanting her imaginary friend to have the oatmeal raisin cookie that he prefers. It's depriving Elmo of the cookie that he wants. That sequence with the dancing elephant, it's not a girl passing along constructive criticism from her imaginary friend. It's just her having an excuse to say mean things to Elmo. The incident with the swing that we mentioned earlier, it's not a girl wanting to make sure that her imaginary friend gets his turn of the fun. It's about making Elmo wait before he can have fun. It's about control. Zoe uses Rocco as a means of controlling all of those around her. In fact, after Rocco gets to swing, Zoe then insists that Rocco keep swinging, further delaying Elmo's turn.
Okay, now it's Elmo's turn. Oh, what's that? Rocco says he's having such a good time. He wants to keep on swinging.
Not to mention that this entire situation starts because Zoe interrupts Elmo's playdate with Gabby and forces Rocco into it.
There's somebody else who wants to play too.
Who's that?
Someone else? Yeah, Rocco! Zoe, Rox can't play.
And once he's in, Rocco once again steamrolls Elmo's plans.
So, what are we gonna do?
Let's say the alphabet. Wait a minute, what's that, Rocco? He says he'd rather jump.
Let me just rewind that.
Okay, now it's Elmo's turn.
Wait up.
What's that? Rocco says he's having such a good
I just
time.
have disappointment and reenactment.
Not to mention that this entire situation starts because Zoe interrupts Elmo's playdate with Gabby and forces Rocco into it.
There's somebody else who wants to play too. Someone else? Yeah, Rocco! Zoe, Rox can't play.
And once he's in, Rocco once again steamrolls Elmo's plans.
So, what are we gonna do?
Let's say the alphabet. Wait a minute. What's that, Rocco? He says he'd rather jump. But Rocco's a rock. Rock can't jump. Elmo wants to see the alphabet. But that wouldn't be fair to Rocco.
Zoe was the one who wanted to jump here. Rocco was just the excuse. At another point in episode 4258, despite his protests, she asks Elmo to hold Rocco's hand, only to come back and claim that he's holding something else.
That's not Rocco's hand. That's his butt. Oh, no, you gross!
Oh, watch it there, Zoe. That is a serious accusation you're making. You're fixing to get...
Rewind it. I want to look at the guy's face again. I'm sorry.
The alphabet. But that wouldn't be fair to Rocco.
Zoe was the one who wanted to jump here. Rocco was just the excuse. At another point in episode 4258, despite his protests, she asks Elmo to hold Rocco's hand, only to come back and claim that he's holding something else.
Look
That's
at
not
that
Rocco's
circle.
hand. That's his butt.
Take a look at her face.
Oh, no, you gross!
Oh, watch it there,
laughs.
Zoe. That is a serious
The
accusation you're
polygons.
making. You're fixing to get Elmo canceled. But in all seriousness, this is yet another example of her
face.
using Rocco to humiliate Elmo despite him ultimately doing what she wants. I could go on and on here, listing more and more examples, but the long and short of it is that Zoe's actions are just cruel. She's using Rocco as an excuse not just to get what she wants, but then to terrorize Elmo while getting what she wants, time and time again. So there we have it, right? Despite what we see in these viral clips, Zoe is actually the evil monster lurking on Sesame Street, tormenting and gaslighting Elmo in an unchecked reign of terror, right? Well, not exactly. You see, while Zoe isn't exactly treating Elmo the best here, you have to remember, like Elmo, she's 3 years old, despite being 3 years old for the past 50 years. Either way, Zoe is a child, and just like we can't blame Elmo for his negative response to Rocco, it's not exactly fair to pin all this blame for the toxic relationship between the two on her behavior, especially when children at that age can't really understand complex topics like morality outside of just, this is right, this is wrong. No, the root problem here actually goes much deeper in Sesame Street, all the way down to the people that are supposed to be looking after these adorable little monsters. See, when it comes to this Rocco situation, it's the adults on Sesame Street, both the humans and the monsters, who aren't doing what needs to be done for the best interests of either Elmo or Zoe. In every single situation that I've brought up here today, the adults are bending over backwards to make sure that Zoe is happy, walking the tightrope to indulge her fantasies about Rocco despite knowing that he's just a rock. Now, let me be clear. Being a parent and engaging with a child's imaginary friend, great thing to do, totally fine. It is healthy to engage with the child's fantasies to a certain degree, respecting their imagination. But the adults on Sesame Street are actually taking this to a whole nother level, a dangerous level, and it's doing more harm than good. Psychologist Dr. Samantha Rodham-Witten explains that, while fostering a child's imagination is great parenting, imaginary friends can get out of hand in certain situations. You cannot let the imaginary friend turn into a way for the child to control the family, because that teaches the kids the wrong lesson. Again, think of the very first clip that brought this whole situation to light. Rocco was not only given a cookie, but at first was given Elmo's favorite cookie over Elmo. And instead of really getting down on one knee and being firm with Zoe about being fair to Elmo, the adult in the clip just kinda lets it happen.
Can Elmo have an oatmeal raisin cookie instead, please?
Gee, Elmo, that was my last one.
Back when Zoe interrupts Elmo's playdate, the adult should have stepped in to defend Elmo, who was clearly uncomfortable saying no to Zoe.
Rocco!
Oh, Rocco.
And when Zoe and Elmo get into a shouting match because Rocco wants to jump instead of Elmo's choice of saying the alphabet, the adult should have been the one to defend.
Oh, Rocco. And that's what it actually say Rocco, isn't it? So like that. Rocco. Rocco. Don't know, that looks like an A or an O. Like after that. Well, I don't care. Continue. Sorry for my talking poison.
Use the situation. Instead, they come up with this.
Jump! No, alphabet! Jump! Alphabet!
Maybe we can jump and say the alphabet at the same time.
That's hard.
We could do that.
See how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine.
Each time, Elmo's wants and needs are ignored by the people around him in order to appease a rock. The same thing happens with the swing later. Sure, the adult checks in to see whether Elmo...
A battery that lasts up to 3 days. Google Pixels.
I can't.
The swing later. Sure, the adult checks in to see whether Elmo's okay with Rocco going first.
Are you sure you're okay with this, Elmo?
Yeah, Elmo's next anyway, Gabby.
But when she suddenly has to go and Elmo doesn't get a full turn to himself, Elmo's patience isn't rewarded. He's the one left holding the bag. And these aren't the only examples of adult characters letting Zoe, through the form of Rocco, walk all over Elmo. In that dancing clip that we showed you earlier, the elephant calls Rocco your greatness and sir, even forcing Elmo to make sure that he calls him Mr. Rocco.
Maybe Zoe and Elmo should switch places. If it's okay with Rocco.
That's Mr. Rocco.
The full wedding that's thrown for Rocco and his bride Petra really takes it as far as it can go. An expensive wedding cake is ordered, people dress up, they stress over being late for this rock. These adults are enabling Zoe, letting her control so much of their lives and Sesame Street in an unhealthy way. And worse, they're letting her stress Elmo out, drive him insane, exasperate him to his breaking point. Remember, he's 3. He doesn't have the tools to understand why they're treating this rock in this way. A way that is, mind you, better than the way that they're treating him. But why? Why are these parents seemingly so scared to really put their foot down when it comes to Rocco? Well, it's sad to say, but this actually has its roots in entirely good intentions. And we can trace the reason why all the way back to the 1970s and a little character named Mr. Snuffleupagus. Yep, I'm serious. This conspiracy goes deep. See, Rocco isn't the first time that Sesame Street has addressed the idea of imaginary friends with an ongoing storyline. And let's just say that the way they did it before was problematic. Back in 1971, Sesame Street introduced Aloysius Snuffleupagus, a big, hairy, elephant-like monster who befriends Big Bird. It's cool. Another new character for all the others on the show to interact with, right? Except there was a problem. Big Bird was the only person who ever saw Mr. Snuffleupagus. And whenever Big Bird tried to introduce him to any of the human characters, Mr. Snuffleupagus would be gone, disappeared into thin air, or lumbering off screen just in time to miss everyone.
What a day. I finally get to meet all of Bird's friends.
Let's go get our stuff and we'll meet back here.
Gee, Bird, they were just here.
Let's go, we're getting used to it.
Oh, they're all back. And I've got to tell Bird. I just saw everybody here. I saw them all.
It got to the point that, while the human characters would play along with Big Bird, they didn't believe him when he said that Mr. Snuffleupagus was a real thing.
At my nest, there's Mr. Snuffleupagus. He is? Yes. Now? Yes, now.
I'm not going to waste my time. I'm going to go see some imaginary animal. I want to get this finished. I want to go rest.
But I want to go meet Mr. Snuffleupagus. The wood can wait.
So much so that it became a recurring joke that would run for 14 years. And then things changed. In the mid-1980s, Sesame Street's creators saw an episode of 60 Minutes highlighting the statistics involving child abuse and neglected home. The people working on Sesame Street felt that having their adult characters refuse to believe a 6-year-old Big Bird when he's trying to tell them something could make the children watching at home think that no adults would believe them if they came forward about something serious. And so finally, they decided to introduce Mr. Snuffleupagus to the rest of the cast. In November of 1985, Big Bird was finally vindicated as the adults came face to face with Snuffy and their jaws hit the floor.
I told you there was a Snuffleupagus. And last You've seen him, and you gotta believe it, right? He's not imaginary, but you never believed me.
Enter Rocco. I suspect that in the aftermath of the Mr. Snuffleupagus drama, the creators of Sesame Street leaned